Welcome to Memoirs of a Fitness Trainer podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Tullis, joined by Tyler Johnson, my fantastic co-host. Say hello to the fans, my man.
What's up, fans or fan? I'm just kidding. We probably got like 4 or 5 people at this point.
It's about 4 or 5. Yeah, that's about accurate. But you know what? We appreciate it.
We're
Anywho,
growing. We're
yeah, oh
growing.
yeah, we're up from being our only viewers of our own podcast. Yeah,
What's our
feels
episode count?
good. Feels
Episode number 12, somewhere. I think we lost count. I remember at the beginning you were always saying like, "Welcome to five, six, six."
Oh, I have no idea what episode we're on. It is on a list somewhere. I made a point to go, I should probably start writing down these episode numbers somewhere. This is becoming an
Oh my
issue.
God. No, they're gone. It's gone. Yeah.
It's gone
But
forever now. But anyway,
perfect.
in today's topic, we are going to be diving into what is the difference between how a trainer sets up a training program versus a client or a average gym goer. And to kind of expand on that a little bit, it's how would a trainer go about creating their own fitness program to get back in shape versus how an average individual would take care of their own program to get back in shape? So, Tyler, I'm going to have you kind of take us off a little bit with that and dive down on what we kind of feel the average gym goer kind of thinks about when they want to get in shape. Let's just say for the first time.
So let's say it's the first time. Give me an age range. Who are we talking about? Somebody in their 30s?
Let's just go ahead and say the average gym goer is 35 to 45. So, yeah, let's just say a 40-year-old.
All right. 40-year-old getting in the shape, no fitness experience, and working off an injury, no injury.
Yeah, let's just keep it simple. No injury, and let's give this guy a little background. Played all sports all going up all the way through high school, and then average person stops playing once they go ahead and go to college. So they haven't done anything athletic wise in like 12 years, or
Okay.
oh my God, 22 years. Math is hard.
Yeah. I mean, step one, no matter who you are coming in with aches and pains at that state. If you haven't done any exercise in 12 years, or if you're not a part of any fitness program and you're in your 40-year-old, unless, you're the miracle of life, I've never met anybody at that stage, especially with that experience level, who's come in and been like, you know what, I'm in perfect condition, no injuries, nothing, let's roll. Like
Never.
I'm healthy.
Yeah, but
No vacations.
let's remember though, because it's not we're prescribing a program for an individual like that. That's what this individual that we know would go ahead and go into. How would they build
Yeah.
their program? I mean, we know the right answer, but does this
Yeah.
person know the right answer?
I would say they're not going in with a built program.
No.
First they're going to go into a gym. They're going to go back to the knowledge that they began with. So anything that was prior to is taught to them is what they'll usually go to. And if somebody, let's say it's a male who's, did football or something, they're generally going to flux to going over and doing, weights and probably trying to do volumes that they did when they were younger, thinking that that'd be something that they'd be able to do now or be capable of, and it would lead to eventually being kind of overstressed or overstimulated, and they'd probably get kind of stagnant after a good 4 months, 6 months max.
Oof,
Probably
if they
stop
make it
coming
that
as
far.
much if they make it that far. Let's say they're really
That's a
determined.
lot of credit, man.
Yeah, and they don't create a community. Let's say they're not really being pressed or being going with family or creative friends in that atmosphere. I say they drop off in that 6 months.
Yeah, and you have such a more positive outlook on on that than I do, man. Six
Yeah.
months? I'm like, God, this person makes it a month. Like they're so far beyond the norm. It's kind of comical.
I mean, that person's still showing up once every 2 weeks. But it's not like when they first showed up and they're going every 5 days, 5 days. And then it trickles
Oh
down to
yeah.
like they make an excuse and then they travel for 1 week and then it's hard to get back in. Maybe they make it one day and then they have motivation for 2 or 3 days, but then they injure themselves because they're going back to not really stretching or doing things. And then they're out another 3 weeks and they come back. And then by
All right.
then the membership's on hold.
Now we're speaking the same language. We're talking about the same individual.
Look,
I'm
they'll
like,
trickle through. They'll trickle through. They'll make it. And then eventually, we usually get a meeting or they find somebody that helps them out.
yeah, 6 months of them in the same place. All right. I think I might need help now.
Right.
Okay. I think that's a
What's
pretty accurate assessment. I mean, I would say like people like that, they tend to go to the gym with zero plan. It's I work out what I think I need to work out that day, and it's all based off of really what that person wants to work out. You know, that an individual like that, like a 40-year-old former like high school athlete, he's gonna love chest. He's gonna do a lot of that and probably just hammer it to all hell a few times a week. And it's just kind of gonna be a program that's more designed around fun things that are enjoyable versus things that actually have progress. And it's going to be very, very back and forth. Like they're going to be strong one day, really weak the next day, and they're going to be demotivated some days, motivated other days. It's going to be a roller coaster and a half for this person.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of like the path, the guidelines of what somebody's going to get to. On the far as the female aspect of what it comes to, I've
Mm.
seen more females kind of trend to, if they're not as experienced, not as comfortable in the fitness floor, they usually try out some classes, or they'll be on the cardio equipment. They do some of, this is a 40-year-old woman who hasn't worked out in 12 years. Do some
22 math.
yoga. Yeah, I mean, most likely it's gonna end, you know, probably a little bit longer than what would happen with the male, but similar ideas. Like they're gonna get stagnant, not gonna see the results that they're looking for in the time period that they wanted. They'll feel stronger, maybe create a social group, and it's not gonna tend to be the progress that they're looking for.
So lack of progress leads to a lack of consistency, which leads to them kind of falling off, is kind of the takeaway from it, right?
Yep. They'll make it
Yeah.
maybe a year though. I mean, yeah.
Well, it's been my experience. A lot of these individuals, they start off usually pretty strong. Like they'll hit a good couple weeks where they're in there, and usually week one they go way too hard and they can't walk for like 4 or 5 days, and then week
Yep.
two they do next to nothing, and then it's this kind of like back and forth cycle. But I think the kind of big takeaway or like what we see a lot as trainers when people start in the gym and they don't have a background and so they don't know and that's completely fine. It's just not their space. But there's no rhyme or reason, no structure, no built plan, no I'm doing this to get to there. And I think that lack of structure kills any of their progress that they would have made. But I think that ultimately leads to inconsistencies of them getting 2 days a week in the gym, 3 days, then four, then one, then they don't train, then they get two. It's kind of this like back and
Yeah.
forth, and they're really just training as their life is where it's convenient in their life. If they have an easy week at work, they're in there 5 times a week. If they have a really hard week at work, oh no, it was just too busy. I couldn't work out this week. And there's a lot of that happens. A lot of excuses tend to kind of peek their ugly head in there.
All right, what about the other side? Because this is what the part of the topic we're trying to get to too. Same person, but this time specific injury. Let's say it's an elbow from, maybe back in the day, hurt their elbow, never took care of it, now it's causing pain, or a knee or a hip. What's your step? What do you think is their steps? Same process?
I think they go into the gym and whatever is hurt is irreparable and is just damaged and broken, and they'll never touch it. They'll occasionally like go into it thinking, "Oh, I should work through it. No pain, no gain." That type of mindset. And of
Mhm.
course, that exacerbates it and makes it 10 times worse. And then it becomes a bigger issue. And then it's, you get a guy that's started trying to get back in shape in his 40s, is now in his 50s, and now he's convinced that he needs a shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
That's usually how like an individual kind of runs through with that. They're people that are deconditioned, or I mean, again, it's they just don't know. Is typically they're very injury we'll go ahead and say they're trying to stay away from injury significantly more than they probably should, which I know kind of sounds a little crazy to say. It's like, of course, you should do everything you can to avoid injury, but you do have to kind of risk a little bit and push and struggle. And when you struggle, you're gonna shake. Your body's gonna try to twist and groan underneath the weight and effort you're trying to do. And you kind of have to accept that there's gonna be some of that intensity or, we'll say quote unquote risk for when you weight lift. And I don't think when they get hurt, they never really get over being hurt from a psychological standpoint.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, that's kind of like for me, I see a lot of people never really end up touching what has injured on them because they just kind of view it as there's a flaw there that must never be touched because I'll make it worse.
Yeah, well, two things. One, really love that vest. I'm looking down. I see that. That's great. Beautiful. All right.
Thanks, bud.
Two, total side note, just take away, take that. Good for you.
Appreciate
Good,
it, man.
good.
I'm just gonna, brush all that awesomeness off my shoulders.
Can't tell if you're a car salesman or if you just came back from a golf match. It's one of the two. All right. So, anyways, you could sell wine in that. You could probably sell wine. You could be wine sales too.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Well, you're
So,
speaking more my language now, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
second idea. So, somebody who came off an injury, who's just getting back in the gym, 40 years old, 12 years back, they've gone and seen a physician who's told them that they have an issue, that possibly to stay away from their surgery or to stay away from that they need to hit to the gym, hasn't given them a set of exercises. If they did, it's because they got referred out to a PT who gave them exercises, which most likely they didn't do. And then they have a list of structure of what's going to help it. And then instead of doing that, they just buy like a knee sleeve or they buy like an elbow sleeve. And again, go back to what you said, push through the pain, think it's going to go away if they start getting a little bit stronger, doesn't really attack the issue, and then it prolongs. And if they do stick in the gym, it's just that's their life. That's just who they are. They're the person with the knee injury or the shoulder injury. It's just, oh, I can't. I hurt my shoulder 5 years ago, and it's just I can't do anything about it. So I stay away from doing any press. Oh, great, cool. You want me to fix that? That's
I I
I've said
love
that to
that.
somebody before. I did that. I told you about that.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
gal,
the client you
Sally.
got.
Yeah, yeah. No, she hasn't signed up with me yet. She's too busy with ski season, but she's just like, oh, it's just trained for years. It's never going to be the same. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. You want me to fix that?
Dude, those are my favorite. Like, I love training for performance. I love training like the person that like gets divorced and like wants to lose like 100 pounds. Like I love that's where my heart is. But I gotta say,
Yeah.
there's nothing more fun than someone coming in going like, well, no, I can't do that. I have a bum shoulder and going, oh, I mean, like we can make that not a thing if you want to. I mean, like
You
you want to give me like 30, 40 minutes? Let's see what we can do.
yeah. Bet you bet you're wrong.
There it
Yeah, but
is.
that's how
You
we
kind of
know.
have to
That's
walk
how we
into it
know.
like that.
Yeah. So all right. So now let's get on to what we want to talk about, which is like, all right, we're the trainers, right? How do you approach an injury? And I'll give you a specific injury just to kind of, help you out and tailor it. So let's start with lower back pain, the biggest one. Let's say you get a spasm, you were doing deadlifts and then the next day it's knotted or something happened and maybe you slipped and fell and you're just like, oh, your back is spasm and it hurts.
There's a trainer in me that wants to ask so many more follow-up questions and get some details.
Two follow-up questions. Two. I'll give you
Okay.
two.
Um, QL, lat, we going more mid-spine. Like when we talk about back spasms, where is it positioned and where's the pain radiating?
Let's go thoracic, like about, T9, T8, like a little bit more in the mid upper part of the back rather than the lower end, not close to the sacrum at all. It's in the thoracic. Um,
That's
and
a
then
mid-back. Kind of think where your shoulder blades are a little bit below it for those not
you're thinking
so keen on
cervical?
anatomy. Wait, you're going
Oh,
thoracic or cervical?
thoracic, lower, behind
Yeah.
your rib cage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. A little bit below your shoulder blades.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I guess. Well, I don't know. You got bigger shoulder blades. It's a little bit lower than that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about to give a point of reference where it's like when people
Okay.
talk about their back,
Your
they
shoulder
think like
blades are
just only
up
low back.
here. Your shoulder blades up here. Your ribs still extend below your shoulder blades. I'm talking like a little bit lower. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, below your shoulder blades. You know
I'm
what?
trying to
Your
get a
ankle is
reference
below your
point,
shoulder
you
blades.
dick.
Your ankle is below your shoulder blades. What do you want from me? All right,
All
second follow-up
right.
question.
So there's pain in the mid back. It's not low
There you
back.
go.
Thanks.
Mid-low.
That was that was such an unnecessary exchange.
This is why you don't. This is why you get two follow-up questions. You don't get more.
Oh, I know. We can go at this for hours to get a right diagnosis. All right. Outside of them having like a rib out of place or their like a catastrophic injury to like a disc or vertebrae in their back.
Nothing catastrophic. Let's say like you felt this pain before. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah. It's just
okay.
a spasm in the muscle. How
Spasm.
I'm gonna approach that is with a probably a little bit of static stretching to begin with, then foam rolling to go ahead and start to really get into it, and then I'll probably take a lacrosse ball from there to get a little bit more aggressive. And then after I've mobilized and opened up the specific area that's spasming on me, I'm going to go ahead and start to try to get the muscle to function the way I need it to. So try to get both sides of my back to equally fire same way, which is probably not going to do that day one. It may take me a few days to get that firing sequence to be the way it's supposed to, but it's the same general process. It's I'm going to mobilize and I'm going to start out I'll say low impact or low aggressive to work my way up to more of an intensive or more I'm looking for a word here, but like high aggressive form of mobility, like something like a lacrosse ball to like really get into it. And then
Yeah.
strength training to go ahead and reset the muscle and to get my muscles on both sides firing evenly. I mean, that would be more or less what I would do. And then I'm going to avoid most big movements while I go through things. So, like, let's just say the deadlift or my squat or like a bent over row, things where my back's in a little bit more of a, we'll say, risky position. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work pretty light in weight. I'm going to probably take my weight down by half. And even if it's a little too light at that point, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild my lift back up because obviously there was a little bit of dysfunction that I was kind of overlooking, which is probably why I got hurt in the first place. So that would be my approach. I mean, you're literally writing a paper on injury rehab. So I mean, what would your take be on that?
The only thing I didn't hear was like the rest period. So the going at it the day of or the day after is
Oh,
most of the times I would say 1 day of rest. So I wouldn't go directly into attacking it the day of. If I were to notice that injury the day of, like, yeah, I'm gonna try to stretch it out, but I'm, only trying to like slightly
oh yeah.
a little bit, then I'd probably, hot shower, ice pack on the back, let the kind of muscles recover, maybe take a little bit of ibuprofen, sleep on it, recognize the pain the next morning. If it has prolonged, if it's become, something that is chronic, that is, still in my back, if it's affected my sleep, then it's like, okay, I really got to take this, lightly, maybe take one more day off. If anything, again, what you would do, I would hot shower, I would, ice it, I would stretch, I would kind of mobilize it, kind of feel it out. And if by day three, if it's still the same, that's a moment where it's kind of like it would be a trigger in my head. But let's say, by day three, I'm noticing, okay, I've got a little bit of space to move, a little bit of wiggle room. I'd go back to like my generalized workout programs with also isolating the same idea, using a lacrosse ball, do mobilization, lightening up my weight load. It'd be reorganizing my structure for my weights and making sure that I
Mm,
notice that that is a pain and that I need to, either be cautious of when I'm doing things both in the gym and my active life, how to steer away from doing things, not lifting heavy boxes. I'm not the guy who's going to go over and be like, oh, can you spot me on this lift? Nope. Sorry, can't be that guy. I've got something going off my back. I've got to steer clear. I've got to make sure that I keep myself healthy and also that I'd be putting somebody else at risk if I'm not at a position where I can help them. And then I would say the one thing you left out is what would you expect for your recovery time?
ooh. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not expecting something for recovery time. I'm not going to walk into it and go, 1 week I'm going to be better. 2 weeks I'm going to be better. It's my body's going to tell me when it's ready to go through the movements, and I don't get to move faster or more aggressive until my body's telling me. And for me, I'm gonna start out with first, all right, I just need to not be in pain. Like that's priority one. I need to not be in pain. And then I need to make sure that I'm even. I have my postures correct. I'm going through all my lifts correctly. And then once that's done, I mean, that could be, I mean, from a simple little muscle spasm, I could, it could be a 1 week process to be back at 100%. But I mean, I've had some back spasms before where, oh man, it took me a couple months to get right. So I'm not going to put a specific recovery time onto something like that because it is, God, it's so situational and it's so determined on like, I mean, how good were you with your mobility? I mean, like you and me are pretty good at it, but there's some times we're a little bit better than others, right? So
Well,
it is going to be a
that's
very experience may vary kind of thing.
I definitely battle with clients on that because they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so mobile." I'm like, "Yeah, you have to understand. I have 6 clients today. I'm gonna be walking them through each one of these stretches every single time,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna go work out for an hour and a half, and I'm gonna do these stretches for my warm up, and I'm gonna do them vigorously, and I'm very much, cueing myself as I go through it. So I have done this stretch 6 times plus the 7th time during my workout aggressively. So I am going to be more mobile than you. Your goal is twice a day. So that's the difference is we have the atmosphere where we get to usually be more mobile and being in tune with the body and recognizing the time to recovery. People, this is what I wrote inside the paper too. It's like, when you get a recovery date from a doctor, um if it's a hernia surgery, or if you have gotten a heart transplant, maybe follow those guidelines a little bit. If you got a quadruple bypass, totally understandable. But my experience, whether I've gone in for both my shoulders being dislocated, laparoscopic surgery, ankles that I thought was broken that ended up just being like a very bad sprain, and they overguesstimate the recovery time, and their cue that they want you to do is always stay off of it, stay away from activity
Mhm.
for 4 to 6 weeks. And that is a very long time, but also that helps them to basically, that's as a proctor, as somebody who's can be sued for them, to try to limit that and
Yeah.
say like, hey, you'll be fine in a week, start pressing weight on it, get some motion going. If they do that and somebody does it wrong without help, then they're liable. So they give you a
The
date that's like, you don't do shit for 4 weeks, you're gonna be fine. I mean, it's not gonna move as well, but you'll be
well,
recovered and I won't be sued.
the let's be careful as we're trudging into this topic as much as you are right. I do agree with it wholeheartedly. It is
Yeah.
a legal thing that we do kind of have to talk about. We can't contradict a doctor, unfortunately,
Hmm.
in our career field, as kind of cruddy as that is. We do kind of have
Yeah.
to err towards them and their decisions, even though I will wholeheartedly admit that a most MDs have little to absolutely nothing as far as experience in injury rehabilitation and athletics. Like
Yeah.
they have nothing. It's bad.
I went to a guy, he doesn't have a doctorate degree, but he actually worked on me body mechanics. He's really good. I'll send you his information.
Please.
One of my clients bought me a session with him where actually he worked on my muscle tissue. And I thought it was gonna be like a deep tissue massage. Nah, dude. The dude was phenomenal. He understands the nervous system. He did some movements with me. I know the body pretty damn well. That guy knows the body. Like it was phenomenal. And the one thing we were talking about, I was like, oh, I got this from the dislocated shoulder. You probably know what I'm talking about. He goes, no. I was like, oh yeah, I had to pop it back in. He goes, oh my God, like that sounds horrible. I've heard people doing that before. I couldn't imagine. I was like, have you ever rehabbed from a shoulder? He goes, no, no, man. Like I barely got injured. I wasn't a person that like, did a lot of sports or athletics. I was like, see, that's the premise is a lot of us
Mm-mm.
who did the sports, athletics, and the dangerous things and jumping bikes off cliffs and have injured ourselves have been to that point where we've had to recover versus the people who have studied it have worked underneath doctors who have rehab people and it's like, oh, this is what works, but they haven't experienced it. So a person that has experienced it and recovered and has gone through the pain and the gain to get there, is the person that's going to know more than the guy who's studied this for 6 years, has seen a bunch of surgeries. Like it's that's my experience with it. And the same thing from this guy who just he knew the body, he knew how to rehab my shoulder and touch it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get back into doing overhead press and stuff like that within 2 or 3 weeks. And he's like, you're insane. Like you gotta stay away from that for like 3 or 6 months. I'm like, no.
No, no, that shoulder will never be the same. I, um,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people follow those long recommendations before. I mean, and sometimes you need them, and that's part of why there's this overprescription of rest and recovery. A lot of times for injuries is like, hey, we don't know quite what's going on, so we're going to put you in a situation where there's literally no way you can re-injure it. But a lot of people don't really think about it. You have a lot of muscle that's connected to where that injury is. You're not using any of it. Well, that muscle is going to atrophy and go away. And that ends up degrading your posture in a horrible way. And it's a really hard thing to get back, especially when now, not only do you have all this muscle that's atrophied around the injured area that needs to be supported, well, you can't support that shoulder anymore unless you need to heal it because you haven't trained anything around it for a long time. I mean, it's a nuanced thing and it is really hard to do. And I agree with you that you do kind of need to, if you're going to make recommendations to athletes about recovering from injuries, you need to be yourself an athlete that works and has recovered from injuries. Have you ever heard the term the gift of injury?
No. Sounds like the gift of long suffrage.
Well, it refers to how athletes, when they get injured, a lot of times when, like, for instance, torn labrum, I became a quote unquote expert on rehabbing shoulders, mobility, dealing with it, how to rebuild a bench press, like everything to do
Yep.
with the shoulder and coming out of that injury and then how to retrain it. That was the gift that I got from that.
Yep.
And now when I have someone that comes in with a shoulder injury, I'm like, I got you. Like
Yep.
this is my wheelhouse. Same deal, mid torn lat. It's like, all right, well, back issues and dealing with that. I got hurt, and as fortunate that was, it caused me to become really, really good at dealing with back injuries as a trainer. But as an athlete, it caused me to be very, very, very protective of my back and how to really balance a program around it because I had to learn.
Yep.
That was the gift that I gained from injury, and it made me a better athlete. And that's more or less what that refers to. And it's I don't know. I think it's really hard to be a good physical therapist or a good rehabilitation specialist if you're not someone who hasn't had that gift kind of unfortunately thrust upon you. At least that's my personal opinion.
Well, I mean, we who have gone through all that stuff and have trained you, we also get our knowledge now from good sources, like I mean, not good sources, but sources that we can easily at the fingertips, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I mean, we search up something, we can look at it and be like, okay, that I'm gonna test it on myself, see if it works, see how it feels. We can feel it out and see like, okay, that's gonna help with this recovery process, and we'll keep that knowledge in. Other people are gonna see something and be like, oh, I wonder if that's gonna work, and then they'll try it out and they're not in the right position, and it's just like, oh, this is not really, this is
Yeah.
stressing it. So, I mean, we have a huge tool bag that
Yep.
can be applied for these things because we experienced it, we can feel it, and it does take a sense of, I'm not thinking about the word, not empathy or compassion, but a way of looking at somebody, how they function, and being able to put ourselves in their shoes and be like, I know how that felt. I know
Yep.
how it feels. That is this muscle. Let me take a look. Yep. Okay, we're gonna do this versus when we go in and it's like, fuck, that hurts. Okay, great. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do this. Ah, feeling better. All right, let's move on. Like we have the tools to just do that for ourselves.
It's
And other
awesome.
people, it's like it's great, and it's a good tool. A lot of times we don't take our own advice. When you say setting up a program, so if you are setting up a program, I know you're way more program oriented for yourself than I am for myself. I go off like, hey man, shredded legs yesterday, went to a great extreme. I'm not trying to push a number other than just work on my Olympic lifts and be, consistent there. Like, how do you approach your program training? You already said like drop half the numbers and stuff like that, but I know you actually tailor in what lifts you do on what days.
Well, I'm a big believer in full body movements and doing full body push and full body pull. That has been my wheelhouse for many years now. It's how I typically run training for myself as well as my clients. And I just find it to be a more palatable, superior way of training. And that's a personal opinion. Like that's a think of it like the right way to cook a steak. I mean, like, yeah, there's a wrong way to do it for sure, but there's also many different right ways. And so like it's just a personal preference. Um, but I would take a program if I'm coming back from injury. Again, it's I'm going to get a lot of single arm movements, single leg movements. I'm going to make sure that I'm being put in positions to where I'm working primarily to get things balanced back out to where I have my right side to left side working the way it's supposed to. So if I'm able to press 50 pounds with my right arm, I need to be able to push 50 pounds with my left arm. And they both need to be about as stable. And I need to be able to feel on each muscle the same level of perceived activation. I mean, as far as you can, tell in the moment, right? But I would do a lot of things like that. That would be how I would break my program down. I would go pretty much back to where I plan to be. So if I'm trying to rehab back into a program in a relative state of athleticism, that's for a 6 day a week training program. I'm going to train 6 days a week still. Now, it may be that I'm doing a third the volume, depending upon how catastrophic that injury was, right? I might be in there with resistance bands 6 days a week if, I'm like really messed up. But I'm going to go ahead and be very forward thinking about what I want to get back to. And I guess kind of the thing is I take all ego out of the equation. Like I don't care what I was lifting. I don't care what I think I should be lifting. I if it takes me to go down to a PVC pipe to get the pain to go away so I can rebuild a deadlift. Well,
Yep.
that sucks. I guess I'm working with the PVC pipe and we're going back up from here. It's okay. I've done that before.
Yep.
2020 November, I blew my back out and with 135 pounds on a barbell back squat like an idiot. Um, and I had to essentially go back down to a PVC pipe and learn to
Yep.
squat body weight, and that was really hard. But that decision to get rid of all the weight was a near instantaneous, effortless decision to make. So I think that the kind of takeaway is I approach it with zero ego, and I just think method. I don't think what I want. I don't think what feels good. I just think, what do I need to do to get me from where I am now to where I need to get to? Is I guess probably my best way of answering that. Is that a good answer to that question?
That's a good answer. No, I would definitely say so. I was thinking about a time I was playing semi-pro up in Chico my senior year, like an idiot. I got hit.
Flex.
Guy came across, lifted me. I was a quarterback, and I had never played the quarterback position, but I was the only guy that was like tall that could throw a little bit, and so they put me in that, and I got lifted. I went from squatting 315 to no barbell in the back. And my routine
Yes.
was, working out vigorously that turned into walking in the pool, stretching bands, regressed. And 3 weeks later, after, really pushing that through, I was able to put a barbell on my back. But yeah, like uh, we have those tools and we have the ability to take our rest periods. And the last stage of this type of talk or series would be like somebody who is consistent in the gym, not working with a trainer, not a trainer. Let's say they're 40, they've been in the gym, but they have training experience. They haven't been 12 years away from it. They've been consistently going and they get injured, right? Like I see a lot of people who have plantar fasciitis, a lot of the women, from running or overuse of going side to side, a lot of my guys with shoulder issues, and they just defend that area and they do exactly what they would have done if they came in with no experience. Then if they have the experience, they stem away from it and they go right back to the knowledge that they still had. And it never recovers, prolongs the rest of their life.
Well, I think a lot of those guys, they want to get back to where they were so quickly. It's I talk about it a lot with weight loss with clients that come in that don't have experience with it.
Mm,
It's don't be so desperate to lose weight that you end up never actually losing any weight at all because they try to go too quick. Like, don't be
right,
so desperate to get back to benching 315 that you never end up getting past 135 again.
right.
Like, the rate at which you go is very, very important because you really you have to listen to this thing. And you also have to listen to what you can palate as far as like training volumes and what you can go through. Like if I create a training program for you that's just so full of misery and just suck that you can't stick with it, even though it's the world's greatest training program, well, fuck, if you can't stick with it, there's no point. Same way as
Yeah.
if you have the world's greatest diet, quote unquote. If you can't stick with it, what the hell's the point? So I think a lot of it is people don't tend to have that kind of mindset of I need to go about this with method, with kind of taking my feelings and putting them in my back pocket, going, hey, these don't have a place right here. And this is probably an area that I butt heads with trainers quite a bit on is I don't really give a shit about what people's feelings are when it comes to training. I just don't care. You need to do what you need to do. And yeah, if it's so miserable that you can't keep doing it, yeah, we need to make an adjustment with it. But if you're injured, there's what you need to be doing, and then there's everything else. If you're trying
Mhm.
to lose weight, there's what you need to be doing, and then there's fucking everything else. And it sounds really heavy-handed, but I think people really do let their emotions and ego and their need to be better, need to lose weight, dictate
Yeah.
their entire progress versus objective reasoning.
Well, you know what I find is like the biggest objection that happens for trainers is they try to make the client happy versus giving the
Oh
client what
yeah.
they need to do.
Hmm.
Like, I have a client that I had to regress back into a stage where it's like, hey, we started doing the weights and stuff that, he really wants to do, but his neck is in this position. He can't close his hands. He has no mobility with his legs. He's come off of having chronic arthritis for a long period of time, and it's like, you know, he
Yeah.
doesn't move well and doesn't hit everything is stiff. And he wanted to do some weights and stuff, and I was like, all right, we gotta stick with your program, and I'll add these onto the days, but I gotta know that you're doing these stretches and mobilizing and doing it all at home. And he's consistent. I trust him. He's doing it. We started adding the weights back in, and then his mobility sank, and it hit all of the progression we worked on for 2 months. And I looked down, I was like, hey, we did the weightlifting stuff. I showed you some cool things, but we're not going to continue that. We're going to go back to what we were doing before. And when you meet with me, one, we're going to be going the twice a week now, not the once a week. I need to see you more because I need to get you loose because we're not making the progress that should have happened in this time period. And it's more essential that you do this now versus the weights. You will feel better. You're going to look better. Your posture is going to be corrected. And since I kind of toned him back, he's gained an inch of mobility because his neck can't move past here.
That's
He
huge.
can't lay flat on his back with his neck rested on the ground. He has to either have his hands or pillow or something because he can't put his head back.
Oof, that's rough. He's
Yeah,
got a journey and a half ahead of him.
yeah. I told him he's like going to Germany for a few months. I'm like, yeah, I'll see you when you get back. He's like, oh, it's great. I love this training with you. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be working together for like 2 years. I'm
That's
like,
oof. That
I'm giving you the map. Like, I don't want people to stay with me forever, but you're a 2-year project, and that is consistency.
you
And the
have
more
to.
that you do
And
this on your own, the faster you'll progress.
one of the things I tell a lot of people like that is, do you want to look like you're making progress or do you actually want to make progress? Let me know your answer, and that'll dictate what our course of action is.
Yeah.
And almost every time that person will go ahead and go, oh, well, I actually want to make progress. Congratulations, we're not lifting weights then. Yeah, I figured out your treatment plan for you. It was hard. I know, but we got there. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and actually make progress, and then maybe in 2 months you'll be weightlifting versus we can spend 2 months fucking around about it and you make zero progress. And then
Mhm.
we do the thing that I was going to tell you that we needed to do. So
Yep.
you let me know which one you want. I'll wait.
Yep.
I'm pretty blunt.
I've had I've had very few people. I'm just picked up actually another client too this week. Or actually no, it was the same client I was talking about before the meeting. We started talking, but she had trained with the trainer before in San Francisco, and I guarantee he's like this really famous guy. I forgot his name, but she had trained with a famous trainer in San Francisco who trained Barry Bonds back in the day. That was the big thing with her. She said, forget the guy's
Didn't
name.
he get popped for steroids?
Gary Colson. Do you know that name?
Yeah, I do know that name. He's a athletic trainer. He kind of hops around from
Okay.
like athletes.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's him.
but
Yeah,
didn't Barry
Gary
Bonds
Colson.
get popped for steroids? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, are you kidding me? It was like 93. He went from weighing like 167 pounds to 230 straight mass. There's an asterisk by his name in San Francisco. Yeah,
I love that. I am a firm
nobody
believer.
caught on, I guess.
I want higher end athletics. Like I'm talking the absolute peak, like
Yeah,
NBA, NFL. I want those boys juiced to the fucking gills.
yeah. Let him die
Like,
at 55. Who cares?
hey,
Push
if
their
you're
heart to the
willing to
limit.
do it, go for it, man. Earn that paycheck.
If you think most of the people in the NFL didn't take steroids, you're high.
I know.
They
I know,
did
but I want them to
early and
aggressively do it.
early on. Yeah, 16, 17. They got on that quick. Um, but let's say, okay, so this gal, she came in just doing our regular assessments, and she's the first person that I've ever met that I've done my assessments and been like, "You're ready for weights." Because she had knowledge of how to squat. She's got some mobility stuff with her shoulders, a little bit of a knee pain. We'll attack that issue kind of as it goes on, but she's ready to kind of actually get onto a program. And that almost never happens.
Mhm.
That is like, unless somebody's coming from like they've been in, very good shape, they're an athlete already, or they have no injuries, and it's like they've done training before, or coming from a really good CrossFit gym, if they, got good coaching from there. I have like 9 times out of 10, we're working with bands, we're doing mobility, we're getting your body. Because I always say, I am not trainer for the sense of weight loss or muscles. I'm a posture correction specialist. Then comes weight loss if that's necessary for that's what you want. It will come with time. And then the muscular build comes last.
I like that. I mean, I think because I'm the other wheelhouse, right? Like body composition, the way you look, the way you like your performance, like that's kind of my wheelhouse. I mean, we have a lot of carryover from like performance-based training, but like you have to assess those things if you're going to go about weight loss. I mean, I talk with people pretty often, to be honest with you, where it's like, hey, I get that you want to lose like 20 pounds right now, but you're walking in here with a limp. Like
Mhm.
I gotta fix that before I even start addressing the 20 pounds you want to lose. Like
Plus,
that's gonna get in the way of it.
the offside of that, though, we'll attack that issue and we'll dial into your diet. I mean, most
Yep,
of your weight loss is going to come from your diet. The
exactly.
muscles will start growing, you're going to start burning more calories, great. But I mean, you'll burn 300 calories in a workout, you'll ruin that with a Snickers. So,
It's an aggressive
Snickers is like,
workout.
I'm just saying, well, I'm if they're
Yeah.
staying there for 2 hours and they're going hard or whatever. I'm just saying, like Snickers
I'm
is like
just
what
I'm just
two
nitpicking you,
hundred and
dude.
sixty calories, like immediately ruin that entire workout. So you dive into there's your weight loss.
Mhm.
So yeah,
I like it.
I don't get a
Okay.
lot of weight loss people. Honestly, I don't get a lot of weight loss people. I got people that want to feel better, look better, feel healthier, and move better. Because that's kind of like my niche. That's my gut dial too. And people are like, "Hey, I'm coming here for weight loss." Be like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna set you up with a nutritionist. Let's make sure that they get your movement dialed in as far as like what you're gonna do for your diet. That can stay on you with that. I'll be here for your workouts and how you're gonna be training and getting yourself to move better. It's just not my area of expertise. So
No, I get it, man.
I
I
have
mean, I
no ego pushing that out.
Well, I think that's the right way to be about it. And it's something trainers specifically struggle with. Like we want to work with everyone and we're so desperate and a lot of times for money. Because it's like,
Yeah.
all right, someone like having one client join with you is a difference of you having a high quality of lifestyle in a lot of cases and having a very low quality of lifestyle. Like a lot of people, they're kind of on the edge. So like there's that element of it. But you do have to be willing to refer people out. Like I don't do catastrophic injury recovery anymore. Like I won't.
Yeah.
Like if, someone's like, "Hey, I, blew my shoulder out. I have a torn pec, torn bicep." I'm like, I'm not your guy for it. I mean, it's like, do I have enough of a skill set to maybe work with it? Maybe.
Yeah.
But there's going to be other people that is literally their world. That's all they do. And I think
Yeah.
trainers need to be very good about going, hey, I might know how to do this, but I'm not the best person for the job right now, and it's going to be somebody else. Circle back. I'll help you after the fact. Okay.
I mean, I've got one guy who I told you about this guy. I meet with once a week. He's had spinal surgery. He does not move well. He can't pull down more than 10 pounds above down to his body weight. Like he can't, his arms fatigue so fast. He's just such atrophy. And I just have him come in once a week. We meet. I go through the exercises that he's one been prescribed by a physician for. And I'm like, outside of that, I'm like, dude, this guy's a 3 year recovery slow, and he just needed somebody to motivate him to get into the gym. And he wanted me to train with him more, and I denied him. I said, look, once a week, just show up once a week, and the other 3 times, don't pay me for it because we're not going to do enough on our own. You need to do these exercises. I get it. It's going to be a long process. Let's plan for the longevity. I just want you to get off your couch, come here, sit on a freaking bike, go steam room, and walk home. Because that itself is 3,000 steps or at least 2,000 steps. And right now you're at zero.
Mhm.
So let's get you moving. And 3 or 4 months from now, if you start getting a little bit better, we'll go up to two. But until then, just move. That's
Uh,
different though.
no, it's the same thing though. I'm starting to really notice a trend as we're kind of talking about everything, and I mean, quite frankly, I knew what the trend was going to be when we were going through topics. It's we're objective. Well, let's go ahead and kind of summarize the field, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, a client or like an average individual coming into the gym without much of a background or is very detached from the background they do have. So the 40-year-old that hasn't done anything in 22 years is
Hmm.
they're very desperate. They're very risk adverse, causing them to not push themselves very hard. They have no real plan. There's no objectivity to their program whatsoever. It's just what do you want to do? What do I know how to do? What do I feel comfortable with? And it's something that's very likely to not really work. So there's a lot of emotion driven into it, causing a lot of instability, a lot of I train really hard one week, I don't train at all the next week because I'm so broken. And it's very subjective versus a trainer or we'll say just an athlete, a learned individual for weightlifting or athletics, we'll call that
Yeah.
is someone that's going to walk into it and be very patient and objective. Like what they want, that's not what we're talking about here. I have what I need to do. There's
Yeah.
a structure to it, even if it is like something like more of a freestyle, like what you do with going in, like, all right, I trained legs yesterday. Now I know what I need to do for this thing. Like there's still a general structure, and you get to lean back on all of your experience to use your experience to make we'll say, in the moment decision and have that decision be very, very correct. So I would say it's just an advanced version of, hey, I know what to do, so I don't necessarily need to have that detailed program because
Yeah.
I mean, you just know it at this point. So a level of
I'm trying to find a
objectivity
way of
and
describing
patience.
this.
What's up?
I'm trying to find a way to describe it like, a want, the need to do. Like that's like my like how I'd phrase those words. Well, you have what you want, but you got to do what you need, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Huh.
No, it's
So,
true. And the body, as much as like we do interpret feelings subjectively with it, right? Like, you and me could be in the exact same pain. Like, our
yeah,
brain is lighting up the exact same way. We're in literally the exact same amount of pain. I might interpret that as a 9, and you might roll out of bed with it being a 3. So like there is an element of things with that. And then we start talking about lactate threshold and how you start to interpret pain that way. It is there's a lot of
If you were to start talking about lactate threshold, now we're talking a whole different category.
but there's a level of pain associated with that and how well your body deals with it. And that's very subjective to person. You could be a person like I think it was like Michael Phelps, like doesn't have one. Like he never peaks over a 10, like comical. And then you get a guy like Lance Armstrong that can sit at a 60, which would make an average person pass the fuck out, and he's coasting. Like, there's a little
Yeah.
difference. But
Yep.
I do think that you do need to walk into programs as well, just setting things up and go, what can I do? Like, what is the thing I should be doing versus that subjectivity and immediacy that I tend to see a lot of people do.
Yep.
Cool. All right, man.
All
Well,
right,
we are
man.
starting to get about a little over, well, we're getting close to an hour here. But any clothing thoughts, any little things that you want to put in there that we didn't touch on before we kind of wrap her on up?
Um, Recovery is a fickle bitch.
Yeah, it is.
If you don't take the time to rehab it, will come back to bite you in the ass.
Every time.
And find someone, if that means you have to meet with three different trainers, you go to a physician, find somebody that you like, that you know, that they look at you with these eyes like, oh, I can fix that. Like, or if they're just like guessing, it, I'm not, again, I'm gonna bounce against the whole physician atmosphere of that. If they're just like, oh, this would take 3 to 6 months, and they're kind of giving you like a realm, find the guy who's gonna look at you and say, yeah, I can fix you. Because most likely they've gone through it, they've done it.
Mhm.
Ask if they have.
That's a big one. When you're talking about injury rehabilitation, ask questions as a client, like ask those questions, get in someone's face about it, be like
Yeah.
very direct with like, hey, have you worked with something like this? Do you understand it? And yeah, you do kind of have to accept that you're going to have to do a little bit of trust there. Like you might just be getting a car salesman of a trainer who says they can fix anything and, make you two
Yep.
feet taller and make your cock grow by 3 inches. Like you get those guys. You
Yep.
like that example for me?
Yep.
But you'll get those and you have to have an element of trust. And don't do a single leg pistol squat when you have bad knees because your trainer's telling
Oh
you to
my
do
God. All right. Get me out of here. That's hilarious. I know exactly where that just came from.
that. Oh, yeah.
A little bit of the preamble came back.
Hey, keep
Yeah.
taking it all back, buddy.
Talk about
But
trust, trusting in another trainer that I know
oof,
did a, oh my God. Okay. That's
so
hilarious.
bad. Topic for another day of dumb shit we see trainers do. But
Done.
guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. I know it's been a little bit since we've been away, but we're going to get back in the swing of things. It's an absolute pleasure as always to have you guys here. We'll catch you here in the next one. Cheers.